As the world continues to see increases in electricity demand, the ongoing challenge to achieve that fine balance between energy security and the provision of cost-effective and reliable supply, whilst also doing so in the lowest emission way, remains front and centre of both policymakers and operators and suppliers. And this all comes at a time when pressure continues to mount over the cost and thus the feasibility of renewables. So has the renewable momentum slowed at all? And if so, where are some of the new capital spending growth hotspots emerging? Welcome to Navigating the Currents of Change. My name is Shaheen Chohan, and I lead global analytics here at Industrial Info Resources. For over 40 years, we have been providing market intelligence, data analytics, and geospatial solutions to those companies involved in the design, construction, and maintenance of plants and facilities across power, energy, and heavy industrial sectors across the world. Now, joining me today is Britt Burt, IIR's Global Head of Power Research, and together we will dive into the current trends being seen in project spending around the world. But before we do that, I would like to say a very big thank you to our podcast sponsors. Hilco is the world leader in motion control and filtration systems since 1905. Hilco's filtration systems have been the industry standard. Hilco brings fluid contamination problems under control cost effectively with a full range of engineering filters, cartridges, reclaimers, coolant recyclers, and fluid conditioning systems. Now, Britt, if we could start by taking a very top-level look at the current spending across different geographies. There are obviously different drivers at play, let's say between emerging markets and developed ones. Would that be correct to say?
It's a very fair statement. We're seeing demand growth worldwide, led by China, India, the United States, but it's widespread, parts of the Middle East, Southeast Asia. So it's a mixture of developing and emerging markets and economies, as well as established economies as well. China and India are experiencing electricity demand growth of 6% per year. Parts of Southeast Asia, such as Indonesia and Vietnam, 7% per year. But if you look at the U.S., where electricity demand has been stagnant for many, many years, we're looking at about a 2% demand growth now. So that's huge.
Yeah, and I guess, Britt, in the past we have seen, certainly in the US and Europe as well, two very mature energy and power markets. We've seen typically sub 1% electricity growth, but in particular, we've seen a big spike in the US. What is causing this kind of new surge in electricity demand?
Primarily the development of data centers is causing a boom in demand for electricity. There's other factors as well. Such as the industrial growth that we see and population growth as well, but primarily data centers is the big driver.
Now, obviously, renewables has always been, certainly in the last few years, front and foremost of most of the capex spending that you and your researchers have been tracking across the world. Are we therefore seeing renewable spending and deployments of operational capacity across these developing nations occurring at pace, or have we seen a little bit of a slowdown? Because obviously, to try and meet this increase in baseload power, renewables may not actually be the right option.
No, we're still seeing a renewable development of renewables moving forward very aggressively. Worldwide, that's going to continue here, but it's global in nature. Solar continues to lead the way, followed by wind, and we're seeing a lot of offshore wind outside the United States. Offshore wind, we're seeing a lot of growth there as well, in Europe and Asia.
Yeah. Now, picking up on that topic of offshore wind, yes, Europe is a very big market.
Yes.
And the US was just really starting to see some of those projects starting to come through. Clearly, we've had a big change mid-year. The Trump administration has made some fairly sizable policy adjustments. Can you just talk a little bit about the impact of those?
The new administration came in and immediately put a pause on development for offshore wind development. So we say that for practical purposes at a standstill right now in the U.S. It's still there, and I think eventually we will see offshore wind be developed here and move forward. Right now, the big markets are in Europe and Asia, primarily.
Decarbonisation, the industry, continues to really focus in on that. I would like to talk a little bit about the nuclear sector, something that, in the past years hasn't really got much airplay, I guess. But would it be right to say that we're now seeing a new wave of more elevated capital spending in the nuclear sector, and what's driving that?
Well, it's the growth in electricity demand and the continued push towards decarbonization, looking for reliable sources of low carbon electricity, and nuclear is the obvious choice for that. Again, it's something that we see that's unfolding worldwide. Certainly a lot of development in China and India, but the U.S., we see a tremendous amount of nuclear capacity in development. Just recently, President Trump and the Prime Minister over the UK had announced development of new nuclear projects in the UK. Eastern Europe, the Middle East, you name it, we're seeing nuclear capacity being developed in countries that don't currently have nuclear power, and I think that's something that's going to continue forward very aggressively.
But we're also seeing, I guess, a shift in the type of technologies. In past years, these projects were $1 billion, multiples of billions of dollars, very complex projects, very big projects, and with that, we often saw a degree of cost overrun, slippage to completion dates. Are you seeing an adjustment in how, from a technology perspective, we're seeing new types of nuclear power coming to market?
We are. At the forefront of that is a small modular reactor technology, usually smaller units that are in the 350 megawatt range rather than the large commercial or the large conventional reactors, I should say, which are more in the gigawatt range, 1,000 megawatt each. The SMRs seem to be dominating what is moving forward or in development or in pre-construction stages right now. I think we're going to see development of some conventional reactors as well. Westinghouse has announced deployment of 10 conventional reactors by the early 2030s. So, and as far as the cost overruns and the construction delays and things like that, we're hoping that some of that goes away with development of the SMR, the small modular reactors. That's the intent, because many of these components are constructed in-house in a fab shop and transported to the job site. So we're hoping that changes, but I think that's still yet to be seen, how that pans out.
Now, Britt, if I could just stay with the renewables theme for a while. Like all new technologies, really the way to get the private sector involved, and actually their involvement, you see technology innovation, and that ultimately keeps driving the cost of these technologies down. And all that's really been propelled and stimulated by policy and having attractive tax incentives in place. Are renewables now getting to the point where they're on a more comparable cost base with, let's say, coal and gas?
More so, probably. There are a lot of tax incentives and government programs out there encouraging development of new nuclear capacity. I believe 20 plus countries around the world have some sort of tax incentives or other government programs to bolster development of nuclear capacity. So yes, it is becoming more competitive with some of the other forms of traditional power generation.
So I guess staying with that, wind and solar are no longer new technologies, right? They've been around for quite some time. Do you think wind and solar still require tax incentives to keep them moving forward?
Wind and solar over the past several years have become more and more competitive with natural gas and coal-fired power generation. However, I think it's still important that the tax incentives stay in place for a bit longer, and this is to it defrays some of the front-end cost. It encourages new players into the industry, and it bolsters the financial backing of these projects. So they're more competitive, yes. I think at the end of the day, tax credits or no tax credits, because we need the power, we're going to see renewable energy move forward at an aggressive pace. It's going to get built, tax credits or no tax credits.
Coming to transmission distribution, an important component of the whole renewable story. How much of the volume, I guess, of renewables being planned, so all of that investment that's still coming through the pipeline, and actually how much is almost coming to a completion and needs to be connected to the grid? How much of the availability or lack of availability of transmission and distribution infrastructure is in place? Is that a big impediment?
That's one of the big constraints right now. And this is a worldwide issue as well, having the transmission infrastructure in place to support renewable energy, not only renewable energy, electricity as a whole. So it's the need to expand the grid as well as modernize much of the grid that is 40, 50 years old or older. The U.S. and Canada both need to double the size of their power grids to support all the renewable energy that is being proposed over the long term. And when I'm talking long term, I'm talking about for some of the 2045 goals and beyond. But yes, there's major investment needed in the transmission grid, electricity transmission grid.
Now, just turning a little to battery storage, some of that, I guess, sits in the T&D space and some of it sits with the generation side. Before you tell us a little bit about, is cost of the battery storage solutions improving? Is the technology itself improving? Could you just explain a little bit about the types of battery storage or energy storage solutions that you and your team are tracking?
Yeah. Well, lithium-ion technology continues to dominate the market in terms of battery storage systems. There are some other technologies that are aggressively being developed and tested around the world. Sodium-ion technology is a promising technology. Some of the flow batteries that are being developed, as well as iron-air. A technology called iron air. There's some pilot scale facilities that have been built, and more on the horizon. Lithium ion is definitely still dominating that space right now.
And on the battery side, are you starting to see improvements in technology? It was always an issue about, the storage capacity and how long that energy can be stored.
Sure.
Is that improving? And are we now starting to see the cost of those battery storage solutions falling as well?
Gradually, cost is falling. The other technologies that I mentioned outside lithium ion are what we call long duration storage systems, the flow batteries, the sodium ion, iron air, and things. Iron air has indicated that there is a possibility that they would have 100-hour storage or more. So right now, lithium ion's 4-hour storage. So yes, that's a major issue and a challenge to overcome as well.
Now, Britt, I would like to turn to fossil fuels.
Okay.
In the past, we obviously saw for many years, we saw some softening, really, I guess, in gas-fired investments. Certainly, the volume of grassroots developments, part of that was really because that new build gas-fired power generation was giving way to new build wind and solar. Now, are we starting to see a shift in sentiment and favour back towards gas-fired capital investments?
We are because we need dispatchable power rather than the intermittent type power that comes from solar and wind. So we are seeing a shift towards natural gas-fired generation. And again, this is something we're seeing occurring around the globe. Development in China, development in Germany. Germany intends to bring 20 gigawatts online by the end of 2030. Some of the collection of the Eastern European countries, this is a wide range, but anywhere from 9 to 24 gigawatts by the early 2030s. Here in the U.S., I think we'll see about well over 18 gigawatts come online by the end of 28. And beyond that, we're tracking well over 100 gigawatts that is in development. The Middle Eastern countries, Brazil, we're seeing a lot of natural gas development take place. There are some constraints to that, and I know you're going to get to that, but there are some constraints that are affecting the natural gas-fired industry as well.
And I guess really in any market where you see a plateauing or a softening in demand, and then you start to see this ramp up in interest, that puts some stress on supply chains. How are the equipment and the OEMs and the technology providers responding to this sort of, I guess, new surge in gas-fired power spending?
Yeah, well, some of the OEMs are adding additional manufacturing space. GE, Siemens are adding additional manufacturing space, but these are very complex machines, and it takes time to build them. Right now, we're seeing delivery time on some of the smaller aeroderivative machines in the 2 to 3 year time frame. Some of the advanced technology, high efficient, combustion turbine systems, the delivery time is more in the 5-year, even up to 7-year range. And then some of the legacy combustion turbines, like the F-class turbines, more in the 2 to 3.5 year delivery times. So they are adding manufacturing capacity, but again, they're constraints just due to the fact that it takes a long time to build these machines, and the demand for them is very high. It's through the roof right now.
Now, finally, Britt, I guess in conclusion, we continue to hear a lot about the pushback on coal-fired capacity. That coal doesn't really get invited to the party anymore, and we're seeing that increasingly in Europe and North America. Do you think, Britt, coal can still have a role to play in the energy mix going forward? And if you do, what do coal operators need to do or implement to try and remain relevant, certainly in a lower carbon environment?
Yeah, well, we'll talk about new build first, and that's most of that we've talked about before as being done in China and India. I don't see that slowing down anytime soon. It's going to come with ultra supercritical technologies. It's going to come with carbon capture, I believe, going forward. For the operating facilities that we have in place, I mean, we're seeing plants that are scheduled to retire over the next few years that are being pushed further and further out into the future due to electricity demand. I don't see carbon capture moving forward aggressively. We're tracking some carbon capture projects around the globe for existing facilities, but I don't think we're going to see a boom in that activity. I really don't. But the longer these plants run, the more necessary it becomes to replace equipment and have major in-plant capital projects to modernize and extend the lives of those facilities. And of course, with that, many times there are efficiency upgrades to keep them operating as cleanly and as efficiently and safely as they possibly can.
Thank you very much, Britt, for sharing your perspectives. I'd just like to say a big thanks to you, and also a couple of additional thank yous. Firstly, to the folks over at Hilco, thanks for your support today. Britt, big thanks. Thanks for sharing your perspectives. If any of you have any further questions about any of the points that we've discussed today, then please do reach out to myself or Britt via the contact details you can see here. And finally, a very big thanks to all of you who have joined us today. I hope we have helped you all better navigate some of the currents of change that we're seeing.